The California sun was setting behind the hills of Ventura as Clint Eastwood parked his truck in the parking lot of the shooting club. It was October 1973. He was 43 years old and had just finished a brutal month filming and directing High Plains Drifter. His shoulder hurt from carrying the weight of both jobs, and his eyes were tired from so many nights in the editing room. But this was not work. This was the only place where he could clear his mind. The private shooting club, where he had been a member for 5 years. He grabbed his gun case from the truck bed. Old leather, scratched and faded, the same one he had used since his days in the Army. He headed toward the clubhouse. The parking lot was fuller than usual. At least a dozen vehicles were scattered everywhere. Expensive trucks, a Cadillac, a Lincoln Continental with Texas plates. It was not the typical weekend crowd. But before continuing, I would like to know where you're listening from. And if you do not want to miss this type of story, give it a like and subscribe. Your support is vital to keep creating content. Inside the clubhouse, Clint signed a range log with the attendant, a younger man named Pitt who normally worked Saturdays. "Busy day," said Clint, handing over his membership card. Pitt nodded, looking a little nervous. "Yes, Mr. Wayne is here. He brought some friends. They're using the competition range. John Wayne is here." "Yes, sir. He arrived about an hour ago. They're doing some kind of shooting exhibition. There is quite a crowd." Clint felt his stomach tighten slightly. He and Wayne had never met, but he knew what the older actor thought of him. Wayne had spoken in interviews about those new revisionist westerns and how, according to him, they disrespected the genre. High Plains Drifter, with its morally ambiguous protagonist and dark themes, was exactly the type of film Wayne hated. "Lane 8 is free if you want some distance from the crowd," Pitt offered. "Thanks." Clint crossed the clubhouse and stepped out onto the open range. He could hear voices from the competition area, laughter, the thunder of gunshots, the murmur of spectators. He found lane 8 at the far end of the standard range, away from the commotion. He set down his case and opened it. His Colt single-action Army revolver rested in its protective foam, clean, well-maintained, familiar. He had owned it for 15 years. He practiced with it whenever he could, not for the movies, but for himself, because shooting was one of the few things that silenced his mind. "Well, look what we have here." Clint looked up. 3 men were approaching from the competition range. Even from a distance, he recognized John Wayne immediately. 6'3", wearing a tan denim shirt and his characteristic Stetson, that unmistakable presence even at 66 years old. The other 2 men flanked him. One was tall and thin, with a weathered face, probably around 50 years old. The other was stocky, with a thick mustache, maybe 40. "Afternoon," Clint said calmly, turning back to his revolver. Wayne stopped a few steps away. His 2 companions positioned themselves slightly behind him. "You are Clint Eastwood." "Yes, sir. That is what I thought. I recognized you from the movies, the spaghetti westerns." Clint set down the revolver and turned to face them. "That is right." Wayne looked at Clint's gun case, then back at his face. "So, do you actually shoot, or is it just for show?" The tall man beside Wayne chuckled. "Come on, Duke. You know these kind of actors. They have armorers who handle the real guns. They have probably never fired a real bullet outside of a safety demonstration on a film set." Clint felt the back of his neck grow warm, but he kept his voice steady. "I shoot regularly. Have for years." "Sure you do," said the stocky one. "I am sure you are very good at hitting the mark when the director shouts action." Wayne crossed his arms. "What Jerry is trying to say is that there is a difference between shooting in movies and shooting for real. We have seen you in these westerns, where you play dark and taciturn gunman. High Plains Drifter, that one where you are basically the ghost." He shook his head. "That is not the West. That is not what cowboys were. It is just a different perspective on the genre," Clint said quietly. "A wrong perspective," Wayne said, his voice hardening. "You are teaching a generation that heroes do not exist, that the West was built by killers and cowards. That is not history. That is Hollywood cynicism." By then, other shooters had begun drifting over from the competition range. Clint could see at least 20 people gathering, curious about the confrontation. "I am not trying to teach anyone anything," said Clint. "I just make movies. Movies that make mine look outdated, Wayne continued. Movies that say everything I stood for was a lie. Do you know what they call me now? A relic. Yesterday's cowboy. Because you and your Italian directors decided to make anti-heroes instead of heroes. The tall man stepped forward. What Duke means is that you are riding on the backs of real Western stars. Men who built this genre with honest and decent stories about good versus evil. And now you are tearing it all down. I never said. You did not have to say it, Jerry interrupted. Your movies say it for you. All that squinting and silence pretending to be deep. But it is just an act, right? You are not a real cowboy. You are an actor in costume. Wayne raised a hand to silence his friends. I will tell you what, Eastwood. Do you want to prove you are not just a costume? Let us settle this the old-fashioned way. A shooting competition. You and me. Let everyone here see if you can back up that tough guy pose on screen. The crowd had grown to at least 30 people. Clint could see a mix of expressions, some supportive, others curious, some clearly enjoying the drama. I did not come here for a competition, Clint said in a calm, measured voice. I came to practice. Oh, I am sure you did, Wayne said, because practicing alone is easy. No pressure, no one watching. But real shooting, real competition, requires something you have never had to show in your movies. Real courage. Duke, maybe we should, Jerry began. No, Wayne cut him off. I am tired of watching this kid destroy everything we built. If he wants to make westerns, if he wants to play the gunfighter, he better know how to shoot like one. A woman's voice cut through the tension. John, that is enough. He is not bothering anyone. Everyone turned. A silver-haired woman around 60 stood at the back of the crowd with a shooting vest and a competition rifle in her hands. She had kind but firm eyes. Stay out of this, Marion, Wayne said, though his tone softened slightly. I will not stay quiet when I see you intimidating someone for making movies you do not like. This is a shooting club, not a film criticism seminar. Wayne's jaw tightened, but he kept his focus on Clint. The offer still stands, Eastwood. You and me. Standard accuracy. At 25 yards, 6 shots. We will see if you are as good as you pretend to be on screen. Clint looked at his revolver, then at the crowd, and then at Wayne. The Duke was a legend, not only as an actor but also as a shooter. He had won quick draw competitions in the 1950s. He had been shooting competitively for decades. This was not just about proving something. It was about facing one of the best. What exactly are we betting? Clint asked quietly. Wayne's smile was cold. Simple. We both fire 6 rounds at standard targets. Best grouping wins. If I win, you admit these new westerns of yours are just cheap imitations of the real thing, that you are riding on my success. And if you win, I admit you know how to shoot. What do you say? The crowd was completely silent, waiting for Clint's answer. Clint thought about it for a moment. He thought about all the hours he had spent at that range, not for movies, but because shooting was something real in a world of pretending. He thought about his father teaching him to shoot when he was a child, about his time in the army, about the discipline and concentration it required. He thought about how satisfying it would be to prove John Wayne wrong. But he also thought about how badly this could go. Wayne was a championship-level shooter. Clint was good, but was he that good? All right, Clint said, but let us make it interesting. Wayne raised an eyebrow. I am listening. Not at 25 yards. At 50. The crowd gasped. Even Wayne seemed surprised. 50 yards with a revolver. The tall man stammered. That is ridiculous. Not even Duke. I accept, Wayne interrupted, his competitive nature igniting. 50 yards. Now I have to see this. The range officer, an older man named Frank with a clipboard and a weathered face, approached. Gentlemen, what is going on here? Just a friendly competition, Wayne said smoothly. Eastwood and I are going to decide who is the better shooter. 50 yards, 6 rounds each. Frank looked at Clint. Is that true? Yes, sir. Frank studied both men for a moment, then nodded. All right, but we will do it properly. I will place new targets at 50 yards, standard precision targets. You will shoot, and then step back, so everyone can see. Clean competition. No nonsense. As Frank walked down range to set up the targets, the crowd buzzed with excitement. Clint could hear bets being whispered. odds being shouted. Most favored Wayne. After all, he was the legend. Jerry leaned toward Wayne. "Duke, are you sure about this?" 50 yards is. "I am sure," Wayne said firmly. "By T is time someone put this kid in his place." Wayne's other friend, the tall one, turned toward Clint Eastwood. "Last chance to back out, Eastwood. There's no shame in admitting you are out of your league." Clint held his gaze. "I am fine. Your choice." Frank returned and signaled that the targets were ready. Mr. Wayne won the coin toss. "Would you like to shoot first or second?" "I will go first," said John Wayne. "Show them how it is done." Wayne walked to the firing line with the confidence of a man who had done this 1,000 times. He drew his revolver, a beautiful Colt .45 with custom grips and engravings, a championship-level weapon. He checked it methodically, loaded 6 rounds, then positioned himself on the line. The crowd fell silent. It was John Wayne about to prove why he was a legend. Wayne raised his revolver and adopted his wide, stable, professional stance. His arm extended smoothly. For a man of 66, his hands were remarkably steady. Bang! The first shot echoed through the air. Wayne did not wait to see where it landed. He adjusted and fired again. Bang! A controlled and practiced rhythm. Bang! 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 6 shots in perhaps 20 seconds. Wayne lowered the revolver and stepped back, his face neutral. Frank walked down range to check the target. The crowd waited in tense silence. When Frank reached the target, he examined it carefully. Then he turned around. "Ladies and gentlemen," called Frank, "we have 6 shots, 5 on the target, and 1 just outside. Grouping of 8 inches. Total score 54 out of 60. The crowd erupted in applause. That was exceptional shooting, especially at 50 yards with a revolver. Wayne accepted the praise with a modest nod, but his eyes were on Clint. "Your turn, son." Clint walked to the firing line. His heart was beating hard, but he kept his breathing steady. He checked his revolver once more, the 6 chambers loaded. The weight felt right in his hand, familiar and solid. He could feel every pair of eyes on him. More than 30 people watching, waiting to see if the movie star could match the legend. Most probably expected him to fail. "This is where he fails," someone whispered. Clint blocked it out. He focused on his breathing, just as he had been taught. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Slow and steady. He raised the revolver, extending his arm. The stance was not elegant. It was not a competition-level position. It was simply the way he had learned, refined through hundreds of hours of practice. He aligned the sights. The target at 50 yards looked incredibly small. He let half the air out and held it, and then everything else disappeared. The crowd, Wayne's presence, the pressure, the humiliation if he failed. Everything faded into background noise. Only Clint, the gun, and the target remained. He squeezed the trigger. Bang! The revolver kicked in his hand, familiar and controlled. He did not wait to see where the shot went. Muscle memory took over. Breathe. Adjust. Squeeze. Bang. Again. Bang. The rhythm was hypnotic. Each shot felt right. It felt clean. Bang. 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 6 shots. The revolver spun empty. Clint lowered it, his arm steady, his breathing controlled. The shooting range was completely silent. Frank walked down range to check the target. The walk seemed to last forever. Clint could not see the target clearly from where he stood, but he thought he had done well. At least he hoped so. Frank reached the target and examined it closely. His expression was unreadable. Then he turned around, a genuine look of surprise on his weathered face. "Ladies and gentlemen," called Frank, his voice echoing across the range. "We have 6 shots, all 6 on the target. Grouping of 4 inches. Total score 60 out of 60, a perfect score." The crowd exploded. Some cheered, others groaned as money changed hands. Marion, the woman who had defended Clint earlier, applauded enthusiastically. But Clint's eyes were on John Wayne. The Duke's face had shifted from confidence to astonishment. His mouth was slightly open, his eyes fixed on the target Frank was holding in his hands. For the first time in the encounter, Wayne seemed speechless. As Frank brought both targets for comparison, the crowd gathered around. Wayne's target showed excellent shooting, 5 on the target, and 1 just outside, spread across 8 inches. Clint's target showed 6 holes grouped in the center so closely that they almost overlapped. "That is impossible," Jerry stammered. "Nobody shoots perfect at 50 yards with a revolver." "Apparently someone does," Marion said dryly. Frank handed Clint his target. "Son, that is one of the best shots I have seen in 40 years running this range. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Clint accepted the target with a modest nod. "In the Army mostly. Then a lot of practice. A whole lot of practice." Wayne finally found his voice. "You got lucky. That is all. Beginner's luck." Clint slowly turned toward him. "Do you really think so?" "It has to be." "Nobody." Wayne stopped, realizing how it sounded. "Nobody what?" Clint asked, his voice still calm but with an edge now. "Nobody who makes the kind of westerns you do could be a real shooter. Nobody who plays antiheroes could have real skill." Wayne's face reddened. "You see, Mr. Wayne," Clint continued, stepping a little closer, "I never claimed my movies were better than yours. I never said the old westerns were wrong. I only wanted to tell different stories, that is all. But you decided that because I make movies you do not like, I must be a fraud. You judged me before I even picked up this gun. You challenged me in front of all these people. You wanted to prove I was just a costume with a squint. But I am not. I am someone who has been shooting since I was a child. Someone who respects the craft, both the craft of shooting and the craft of making westerns. I do not have to make movies like yours for mine to be valid. And you do not have to like my movies for me to be a real shooter." Wayne's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Now Clint said, lowering his voice back to its usual calm tone, "I believe we had a deal. You said if I won, you would admit I know how to shoot. I am waiting." Wayne looked at the crowd. Many were watching him with expressions ranging from amusement to disappointment. For a moment he seemed to age 10 years. "You know how to shoot," Wayne said quietly. "I did not hear you." "I said you know how to shoot," Wayne repeated louder, his voice rough. "That was an exceptional shot. Better than mine." Clint nodded once. "Thank you, sir." He turned to gather his things, ready to end the whole situation. But before he could move, a new voice joined the conversation. "Duke, you old fool." Everyone turned to see another older man approaching from the clubhouse. He was in his 70s, distinguished looking, with gray hair and a military bearing. His jacket indicated he was some kind of range officer. "Colonel Patterson," Frank said in surprise. "I did not know you were here today." "I was in my office doing paperwork," Colonel Patterson said, his gaze moving between Wayne and Clint. "I heard the commotion and came out to see what was happening." He looked at the targets Frank was still holding. "May I?" Frank handed them over. Patterson examined both carefully. Then he looked at Clint with a spark of recognition in his eyes. "Are you Clint Eastwood, the actor?" "Yes, sir." "And before that you were stationed at Fort Ord, Army 1951 to 1953. Swimming instructor." Clint looked surprised. "That is right. How did you know?" Patterson smiled. "Because I was there. I was a captain then. I ran some of the shooting training programs. You placed third in the All-Army Pistol Championship in 1952. Did you not?" "Yes, sir." "Third out of 2,000 competitors," Patterson added. "And you would have placed higher if you had not used standard equipment while everyone else had customized weapons." The crowd began murmuring again, but the tone had completely changed. These were no longer whispers of mockery, but of admiration. Jerry adjusted his mustache. "Wait, so you are telling us this guy is actually a championship-level shooter?" "He was," Clint corrected. "That was more than 20 years ago." Patterson laughed. "He was, son. If that is how rusty you are, I would love to see you at your best." He turned to Wayne. "Duke, did you know any of this before you challenged him?" Wayne had the decency to look embarrassed. "No, sir. Let me guess. You saw his movies. You did not like the direction the Western genre was taking, and you assumed he was just another Hollywood actor playing dress-up." Wayne's silence was answer enough. "Well, let this be a lesson," Patterson said sternly. "Never assume someone's abilities based on their current profession or the art they create. Mr. Eastwood is the real thing. Always has been." The tall man spoke, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "Mr. Eastwood, we owe you more than just recognition." What Duke said, what all of us said, was out of line. Clint watched them for a moment. Wayne looked genuinely regretful now, his ego properly deflated. "I will tell you something," said Clint. "How about instead of apologies, we all shoot together? I could use some advice on rapid-fire technique. I'm sure Mr. Wayne knows methods I've never learned." Wayne blinked in surprise. You want to shoot with me after what I said?" "Why not? We're all here because we love shooting." Clint extended his hand. "Start from scratch." Wayne looked at the offered hand for a moment, then slowly took it and shook it firmly. "Start from scratch. And I was wrong about you, Eastwood. That was one of the best shots I've ever seen. Maybe the best." "Thank you, sir. And for the record, I grew up watching your movies. True Grit is one of my favorites. You're the reason I wanted to make westerns." Wayne's eyes widened slightly. "You mean that?" "Yes. I'm not trying to replace what you built. I'm trying to add something, to show different sides of the same story." For a moment, something changed in Wayne's expression. The wounded pride and anger faded, replaced by something closer to understanding. "Maybe I've been looking at it the wrong way," Wayne said quietly. "Maybe there's room for both kind of westerns." As the crowd began to disperse, many people approached Clint to shake his hand or ask about his shooting technique. Frank offered him honorary lifetime membership. Marion invited him to join the club's competition team. But it was the words of Colonel Patterson that stayed with Clint as he packed his gear that afternoon. "You know, son," the colonel had said quietly, "what you did today wasn't just prove you can shoot. It was maintaining dignity in the face of unfair criticism. You didn't get angry. You didn't lash out. You simply demonstrated your competence in silence and let the results speak for themselves. And then, and this is important, you offered friendship instead of rubbing his defeat in his face. That's the mark of a true professional." As Clint drove home that evening, the California sun setting behind the hills, he thought about Patterson's words. He thought about Wayne and how easy it would have been to hold on to anger, to humiliate the older actor even more, to make him pay for the disrespect. But what would that have achieved? The target with his perfect score rested on the passenger seat, a reminder that sometimes the best answer to judgment isn't anger or argument. It's simply being excellent at what you do, and then offering grace. The phone rang when he got home. It was Sergio Leone. "Clint, I've just heard the most incredible story from a friend in California. Something about you and John Wayne at a shooting range." Clint smiled. "News travels fast. Is it true you really scored perfectly and beat John Wayne?" "Something like that." Leone laughed with his booming laugh. "This is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Do you know what it means?" "What?" "That the two biggest names in westerns are no longer enemies. It means that maybe, just maybe, people will stop seeing your films and his as opposites. Maybe they'll see them as two parts of the same tradition." After they hung up, Clint sat on the porch with a beer watching the stars come out. The phone rang again. This time it was a reporter from Variety who had somehow already heard about the incident. "Mr. Eastwood, is it true you outshot John Wayne at the Ventura Sporting Club?" "We had a friendly competition," Clint answered carefully. "I got lucky." "Lucky? Our source says you made a perfect score at 50 yards. The circumstances were favorable. Still, it must feel good proving your critics wrong." Clint thought about it. Honestly, the best part wasn't the shot. It was the conversation afterward. Mr. Wayne and I had the chance to talk about westerns, about different approaches to the genre. I think we both learned something. After that call, Clint unplugged the phone. He had a feeling it would ring a lot in the coming days, and he was right. By Monday morning, the story had spread through Hollywood. His agent called, delighted with the publicity. Studios called, eager to capitalize on the story. Magazine editors called, asking for exclusive interviews. But the call that mattered most came Tuesday morning from John Wayne himself. "Eastwood, it's John Wayne." "Mr. Wayne, good to hear from you. Look, I wanted to call personally and apologize properly without the crowd around. What I said Saturday about your movies, about you being a fraud, was out of line. I appreciate that." Wayne paused. "I've been thinking about what you said, about adding to the tradition instead of replacing it. I still don't like those dark westerns of yours. Probably never will. But I was wrong to say they weren't valid. Wrong to say you weren't a real cowboy. We can disagree about movies and still respect each other, Clint said. That's what I'm learning. Wayne cleared his throat. I've got a proposition for you. I'm making a film next year. The Last Gunfighter. It's about an old gunfighter dying of cancer. Probably the last movie I'll make. There's a scene where a young gunfighter challenges the veteran. The writer wants to cast a nobody, but I was thinking, what if it were you? Clint was genuinely surprised. You want me in your film? I want the best shooter in Hollywood in my movie, and it turns out that's you. And I think it would say something. The Old West meeting the New West with respect instead of hostility. It would be an honor, Mr. Wayne. Duke. Call me Duke. They talked for 20 minutes about the script, about westerns, about the changing film industry. The role never ended up happening due to schedule conflicts and Wayne's declining health, but the friendship that began that day lasted until Wayne's death in 1979. In the months that followed, Clint returned regularly to the Ventura Sporting Club. Duke came when his health allowed, and they shot together, not competing. Just two men who loved the craft-sharing techniques and telling stories. Duke taught Clint tricks he had learned in the 1950s. Clint showed Duke precision techniques he had learned in the Army. They became not rivals, but colleagues, friends. Even the shooting community noticed. The story of their confrontation and later friendship became legendary in sporting circles. It changed the culture in Ventura, making it less about ego and more about mutual respect. Years later, when Clint had become not only a star but a respected director, a journalist asked him about his relationship with John Wayne. There's a story about you two at a shooting range. Is it true? Clint smiled. Which version have you heard? The one where John Wayne challenged you and you beat him with a perfect score. Clint shrugged slightly. Something like that happened, but the real story is simpler. Duke and I started off on the wrong foot. We had different ideas about what westerns should be, but we found common ground through respect for the craft, both filmmaking and shooting. That's all. The journalist nodded while writing notes. He spoke very highly of you before he died, called you the most natural shooter he had ever seen. Clint felt a knot in his chest. Duke had been gone 4 years. After the interview, Clint drove to the Ventura Sporting Club. The place had changed over the years, new buildings, updated equipment, but Lane 8 was still there, his favorite place when he wanted solitude. As he prepared to shoot, he thought about that day in 1973. How a confrontation born from artistic disagreement had turned into genuine friendship. The target from that day, the perfect score that had amazed everyone, hung framed in his office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that excellence speaks louder than argument, that grace is stronger than revenge, and that the best way to change someone's opinion isn't through debate, but through demonstration.